Red wine is a type of alcohol mainly made from the juice of black grapes. Every year, about 24 billion liters of wine are drunk around the world, equivalent to the amount of water flowing over Niagara Falls in 2 hours. To produce this huge volume of wine, vintners have had to use traditional techniques and improve them. This winery produces Yellowtail wine, one of the best-selling wines in the world, with a production of nearly 150 million bottles per year. In January, the harvest begins. The first job is to check to see if the harvest is ripe. They will harvest in about 10 days. The most famous grape in the world is Cabernet Sauvignon. Every year, Luke and his colleagues harvest nearly 170 square kilometers of vineyards. They would need an army to harvest these grapes by hand. Instead, they use a fleet of grape harvesters capable of doing the work of 200 people. Pneumatic pumps lift the 10-ton machine to the level of the vineyard, then harvest the grapes for breakfast. As the machine moves, 14 fiberglass springs inside the machine vibrate at a rate of 4 times per second, strong enough to harvest the grapes, but gentle enough not to damage the leaves. As the grapes fall, they are collected, passed through the machine, and dumped into baskets. They are then transferred from the harvester to a container pulled by a tractor with the help of a conveyor belt. When the container is full, it is withdrawn and 6 tons of grapes are dumped into the truck. At this time of year, grape harvesters work many hours each day to harvest grapes when they are at the perfect point of ripeness. To carry out this task, they need a vacuum like this. As the steel tube sinks, it sucks up a juice sample that is used to analyze the wine's acidity, sugar content, and chemical compounds called phenols, which determine the wine's flavor and color. Now begins a race against time. With temperatures averaging 30 degrees in the Australian summer, grapes will soon go bad. In the past, grape harvesters would take off their shoes and start stomping grapes, but now they use giant machines, each capable of pressing 100 tons of grapes per hour, from Chardonnay to Cabernet Sauvignon. The rotating barriers deliver a full load of grapes to the press in 25 minutes, but they don't remove the pesky stems. Now, the grapes are divided to make white and red wine. All grapes have transparent flesh, so both black and white grapes are pressed to get the juice used to make white wine. The color and flavor of red wine comes from phenols contained in grape skins. So, the black grapes are pressed together with the skins to mix, and are introduced to begin the first stage of red wine fermentation. This is where winemaker Mikhail Slater takes his first sip of the day. Here, we look for the potential of wine. During this first stage, you can already have an idea of its taste. It has character with a bit of heat and is delicious. During this period, white wines are distinct. The skins contain tannins and other substances that affect flavor and color, so these unwanted chemicals are removed in 16 giant presses, each processing more than 700 tons of grapes per hour. What we look for is a fruity flavor, so we try to see if it's as balanced and sweet as we want. This is the step where we see a person making wine. But this bubbly fermentation is far from being something that could accompany a fish dish. Any seeds or plant particles are removed through these vacuum rotary filters. As they rotate, the vacuum draws the juice through a mesh. Any excess is trapped in a filter around the drum. While the drum rotates, the wastes are removed by this blade and separated. The juice is cleaned and then drained and stored to proceed to the fermentation stage. Fermentation of white and red wines takes place in giant steel tanks, some with a capacity of more than 1 million liters. Yeast is added to each tub. The yeast eats the sugars in the grape juice and creates alcohol, creating different flavors depending on the different grape varieties. During fermentation, it is important that the temperature of white wine does not exceed 13 degrees, and that of red wine 24 degrees. The temperature is controlled by pumping each tub from a tank filled with cold water that acts like a giant refrigerator while the juice ferments. Towards the final stage of fermentation, red wine retains its skins, which are removed in machines called tilt presses. Some peels can be added to the wine if the winemaker thinks it needs more flavor. These leftovers are called hecho and are used in the animal feed industry or as fertilizer. Meanwhile, the filtered red wine continued to ferment, and Mikhail poured himself his 3rd cup of the morning. This is the next stage. When the wine has fermented, you can see the color change. It has a deeper red color, a very fragrant smell, and has many stems and many flavors. It bears the mark of a good wine. Now comes the real art of making good wine: blending. A single bottle of wine may contain grapes harvested from 3 different regions of Australia, fermented at different times. People like Frank are responsible for blending to create the perfect bottle of wine that we will find on supermarket shelves. What they do here is analyze different mixtures. We analyze them again and again to ensure they meet consumer expectations. Once the mixture is complete, the ingredients are pumped from the tank to the bottling line. The most expensive bottle of wine costs about 266 euros. One of the world's best-selling wines requires the right bottling technology. This company does it in the best way possible. It is one of the fastest lines on the planet, capable of filling 36,000 bottles per hour, and has 3 operating lines. The final stage is to bring the bottles to consumers in 50 different countries. Containers containing 672 bottles were taken out and loaded onto trucks for distribution. Every year, 12.5 million barrels of wine are shipped from here. remember to subscribe to the channel, and if you like this content, you can also purchase one of these bottles via the link in the description.